So welcome all to the November meeting of the LA-STIP group. I guess I'll talk to possible viewers that will join us in the future. So, and to the 4 people that are in this meeting now. But my name is Arthur. I'm a PhD at Spruce, Sussex, and I'll be facilitating the discussion today. Today we have Dr. Edelweis. Here's Pavel, talking about the Brazilian semiconductor market and the public policy around it. And as always, we have the luxury of having Professor Carlota Perez as well. She'll be hosting and sharing her experience and giving some valuable insights for the discussion. Just some suggestions. It's just the 5 of us here, but we can keep the mic muted during the presentation, and then but you can turn it on when you intervene. And as always, this is being live streamed on YouTube and recorded. You can use the chat box just to let me know, but since you're a few people, you can just unmute yourselves. People on YouTube, if you're watching, you can comment there and I can bring your questions here, and it can be in Portuguese or the language we'll try to translate if that's the case. But before I pass actually the floor to Edelweiss and to Carlota, I wanted to say a few words why I was so enthusiastic about having this meeting in particular. And a little bit about the group as well. So this group, as you may know, it started in 2018. The LA-STIP means Latin America Science, Technology, and Innovation Policy. And this is a discussion group, and it's led by Carlota. It has been take place monthly at SPRU. This is a space where usually master and PhD students give a talk about their concrete experience in the design and implementation of STI policy. And by doing that, analyzing, contrasting those experiences, we try to derive lessons for future policy in the region. Lessons, those that are not usually present in books written in the context of rich countries. But not only SPRU community takes part in this group, people from IDS, Global Studies, other departments at Sussex, also students at IIPP, UCL, people from LALIX, etc. Whoever is interested, you're all welcome. You can join us by writing to the email address in the top there, and you'll be added to the mailing list, or join us in the LinkedIn group to connect with policymakers, practitioners, people in the market, academia. We try to make there a space for networking as well. And since the pandemic, we also went online, and then we opened up the presentations to not only broader audience beyond the students and PhD students and people at SPRU and the university, but also we brought it to a wider range of speakers, which is the case today. And as I said, we have a lot to discuss, and I don't want to take a lot of time from the presenter, but I wanted to say a few words about the topic and also about its relevance and why I think it's timely. You know that there has been a weird treatment given to the state-owned Brazilian semiconductor enterprise in Brazil called CEITEC and to its staff, and that generated a lot of fuzz on Twitter, and I got to know about it there. And when I mentioned it to Carlota about the liquidation of CEITEC, she was very kind to say that we should not only discuss it in this group, but also she offered to try to do something about it. And among other actions, she talked to Matsukato, and it was good to see some impact on Twitter caused by their posts. And that's quite important because the more people talk about in Brazil, more the media and politicians will listen, and perhaps something different will happen. Let's hope for that. So I then engaged with some CEITEC staff, former presidents, and it became clear that we needed to discuss not only CEITEC, but the semiconductor sector in Brazil. And then I was directed to Dr. Edelweis and ABSEMI, the Brazilian Association for the Semiconductor Industry. So we are very pleased to have her here because she has a lot of experience in this field, being a professor, one of the first staff at CEITEC, being CIO at semiconductor companies in Brazil, and also a director at ABSEMI. So I hope you enjoyed this opportunity. We all learn a bit more about the practicalities of semiconductors. And I hope that Carlota can say a few words now and as our host. So the word is yours, Carlota, before I actually give it to Edelweiss.
Yes, I think this is a very important session for us. As most of you know, these monthly meetings are about trying to connect the theorists, the people who are learning about technology, innovation policy, public policy in general about technology and development, with the people who are on the job, both people who are in policy making and people who are in the private sector, also in a way, you know, having strategy, looking at the future. So this session is particularly important because obviously the information revolution requires an understanding and a capacity to use the semiconductor things, you know, the whole of the semiconductor industry is a crucial part of the changes that are happening in the world, including our conversation now. So this is a luxury to have Edelweis Ritt with us today, because she is not only a practitioner, she is a PhD in semiconductors, precisely. I think it's in semiconductor anyway, in this sort of technology. So first of all, it's not so common to have so many women who are top of their profession in this area. So that's one good thing. But also she happens to be in the Association of Electronics in Brazil, and also the person in charge of relation with government. So she actually has personal experience in CEITEC, personal experience relating to policymakers, and personal experience in the industry itself. So it's really a luxury. We're very fortunate to have her. Thank you very much, Edelweis Ritt, for accepting our invitation. And I think we're going to learn a lot about the industry, about its uses, about the history of policy, all those things that Edelweiss knows a lot about. Thank you very much for accepting it. And I think we'll benefit a lot from what she has to tell us today.
Thanks, Carlota. So Dr. Edelweiss, an executive with strong business experience in the electronics industry. She started her career at Agilent Germany, working in the chip design. She worked for companies such as CEITEC, Semikron Brasil, Atacama Ventures, and Unitec Semiconductors. She was also invited in 2018 to join HT Micron as the responsible for institutional relations and strategic alliances. She has a degree in computer science from PUC Rio Grande do Sul, a master's from UFRGS, and a PhD from the University of Tübingen in Germany. So thanks a lot again, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm very honored by the invitation. And let me share my presentation with you all. Are you seeing the presentation? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Okay. I will. Oops. Okay. No. Yeah, you said a little words about me. I will give some more words just to make it more personal. I'm Brazilian. I'm born here in Rio Grande do Sul in a little city.
Not hearing well.
27,000.
Not
Yes?
hearing well. What's going on?
Not hearing well.
No. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I don't know. It was, yes, I can hear you now.
In
Do
the
the
case, I
others?
can use my microphone.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a lag. Maybe, I don't know, we can try without the camera soon if it doesn't work.
It's better?
Could be. Well, you
Apparently.
can try with the mic first.
Yeah, let me try to the microphone.
It's better?
Perhaps. Go ahead.
It's better?
Go ahead. It could be better. We don't know because it goes like that. So
Yeah,
you-
I'm in Wi-Fi at the company because I'm a meeting room and I'm receiving saying that our internet connection is unstable. Probably is the problem on my side. If it doesn't work, I can make it better. Let's see if it works. If not, we can do something. Yeah. Okay, we'll start again. My name is Edelweis. I'm Brazilian. I was born here in Rio Grande do Sul in a 20,000 employee population inhabitants, and yeah, like Arthur presented, I studied computer science, master PhD, and I moved to Germany. I married in Germany. I have two daughters. One is here watching. Very good to see it, and I'm very proud to be here and talk a little bit about yeah, semiconductors. I will start saying a little bit about what are semiconductors and what is the value chain for semiconductors, because in other case it will be difficult to understand how the market works and how the policy can work for this kind of technology. Is better now with the connection?
It's slightly better. Maybe we try without your camera because sometimes cameras takes a lot of.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good idea. Okay, let's see if it's better. In the semiconductor value chain, usually we have three main tasks that have been verticalized a while ago. When the transistor was invented, the companies had everything in-house. They designed the transistors together, design of the functionality of the electronic, produced the wafers, and then after the wafers are ready, they used package. And at this time, the packaging was just a kind of protection from the environment. It was very simple thing. Some transistors designed, a printer, or let's say, put in a wafer. Yeah. In some processes, I will show what is a wafer after, and then let's say protected from the environment. When we started more and more complex, putting more transistors and reducing. And for this, I will introduce here a concept called Moore's Law. Moore's predicted that the quantity of transistors that you could be in a certain area would double every year. And this have been happening since every year. We started putting more and more transistors in the same area, what allows more and more functionality from the very, let's say, simple computers we had from the beginning that today are less potent than the processors we have in our cell phones. This law is being applied, the Moore's law from Moore. And when this started, the industry started also to change. And we had a certain, let's say, specialization. I think the biggest change, I believe, it was the idea that wafers could be done as a service. The company that started to do it is TSMC, a Taiwanese company. And today, more than 50% of all wafers in the world are being produced in Taiwan. Yeah. And the third part was packaging. That is, after wafers are ready, the wafers are very sensitive equipment, cannot receive dust or particles, and that's why they are put in a kind of protection that we call the pitch electronic packaging. And this is also a connection with the worlds, with the product that we put these chips inside. And then this created in the industry three main, let's say, business. One is what you call the fabless companies, because since I have the possibility to hire this packaging as a service, the wafers as a service, let's create a new business called fabless. That means people that had no fab. And if you see today, the biggest companies, they are fabless. For example, Qualcomm is a big company that makes the processors for cell phones, for example. They don't have the foundries, they don't have the packaging companies. They design the semiconductor and then they send the foundry in Taiwan or wherever. And this is very important because we have to understand this is a very distributed value chain. That they can design in US, they can send to Taiwan, and then they send to a company called OSAT, that's an outsourced assembling test company. That's the last phase, that's packaging. Obviously, this is an oversimplification I'm doing here, the chain. There is a lot of more possibilities, and I will not come to that. But I think it's good enough to understand the main three tasks and how this chain is organized today. And this will be important to understand after also the true idea from the shortage, because I think the most important point to understand here is this is a distributed chain. Sometimes one country is doing design, the other is doing the wafer, the other is doing packaging. I put here a photo of a wafer. Wafer is this huge slice of silicon. At the beginning, you have a silicon slice that has nothing, and through chemical process, put all transistors inside. And in one wafer, there is a lot of dies. It's called die, D-I-E. Yeah, this is a little piece. You can say this way: no area is used to put a lot of different dies. They are then cut in little squares, and they are packaging. Here I put from two Brazilian companies that are members of PADIS-Semi. One is Smart Modular, and the other one is from HT Micron, where I'm working right now. This is from the HT Micron chip. You can see this is packaged. The little square silicon is inside of this package. It can be one or a lot of different things inside. And the other side that you see, the green side with this, we call pads, are the metal connections that will do contact with the PCB, with the board that, compose electronic process at the end. I hope I'm being pedagogic enough. That is easy to understand, but please, Arthur, interrupt me if I'm a little bit too technical so that I can explain.
No, that's fine. The audio is not perfect. We can follow though, but I don't know if you have something you can improve there. But
I can try to get the cable. If
perhaps.
you want to, because I'm using the Wi-Fi right now.
Yeah, it's lagging a little bit. It's cutting from time to time.
Okay. This could be, let me try this to get the cable.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Should you stop recording and then resume or not?
That's okay. I can edit afterwards.
Let's test.
We lost your sharing.
Yes, it's because I got out to change from the.
I think the audio is better now
Seems
already.
better,
Better, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, now I have my cable. I will
Oh, it's
disconnect the
much
Wi-Fi.
better.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay, now I have a cable. Let's start to share again. Should I start again presentation or was good enough?
No, we
Go ahead.
could get it, most of it, so that's fine.
Okay. And let's just share again. Okay. I think that's, can you see the presentation again?
No. Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
That's great.
Okay. Then I will just,
much better.
yeah. Yes, now I have a cable, not Wi-Fi anymore. Sorry, I had to think about this. To just to emphasize the last points I did, yeah. We have three main tasks. That's design, the wafer, and the packaging. And today, this is a very verticalized chain. Usually, someone is doing design, the fabless companies, someone is doing wafer. We call this pure play foundries. They just take a design. They don't know what the design is. They just put this in the wafers. And then you have packaging companies. They also take the wafers, they cut the little squares, and they put this in this little recipient, yeah, that receive this die inside and make the connections to the electronic products. There is obviously, like I said, more complicated value chain as the technology evolved. For example, I can come back here and say this little HT Micron chip, the IMCP that is being showed here, had 57 different chips or pieces of silicon inside. This from the beginning, the idea of the packaging was just to put everything protected and do the connection to the product. But at the meantime, we are able to do full systems inside of the little package that we call the system in package. And there is other possibilities that you see. It's the inside of the package, we have a lot of different wafers inside, so that you have a full SIP, a full system inside of package. I mean, theoretically, we could increase this complexity. And this is one of the answers to the Moore's law that I talked before, because we are coming to the frontier of the technology. We cannot put more transistors in the same area because we are going now to really some atoms. in terms of channels, and that is not possible from the physics. We are going to the limit of the physics. And one possibility to continues to increase is to put more things inside of a package. We put this in the 2D, or we for example, for the memories of our cell phones, that's what a lot of our members do in Brazil. I'll talk about this soon. You can pile up the wafers, so that it's like going from houses to buildings. Yeah, we will use the 3D structures to be able to put more things inside. Okay, I hope now the connection is good. You can hear me? Okay, perfect.
Very good.
I will talk a little bit about ABSEMI. ABSEMI is the Brazilian Association for Semiconductor Industry. No one knows a lot about Brazil and semiconductor, but we have a lot of companies at the meantime. Mostly of the companies are doing packaging. The last of the three main tasks I showed in the chain, but we had also two companies that were focusing on wafers. And that's CEITEC was one of that, because Arthur mentioned CEITEC. When I talk about CEITEC, I will talk about, because all the companies we have right now at ABSEMI are packaging, the last one. We had two projects in Brazil for wafers. One was CEITEC and the other was Unitec. I worked also at this project. And then we have some companies doing only design, for example. And this is here I will talk about. ADATA, HT Micron, Brazil Components, they are in Smart Technologies are doing packaging. Chipus and Idea and Qualcomm, they do design. They're fabulous companies. And unfortunately, CEITEC is not a member anymore. We'll talk about this after. And Unitec also is not a company anymore. And we have some institutions that we call ICTs, and institutes, not commercial companies. They are, let's say, related to our industry. And this is the design, the FChip, the CESEM Brazil, Eldorado, LA-STIP, Unicinos, and Unifei. And this is very important. I think I will talk about this right now, but I have to contextualize after. But these institutions, they are very important because we have subsidies. I will talk about this as incentives. Let's say this word because that's a better word probably. The incentives we have in industry, they have a counterpart. In Brazil, to be able to receive the semiconductor incentives, you have to invest in R&D. And this R&D is an investment that we have to do in these institutions. I mean, 5% of the revenue has to be, 1% of the revenue has to be invested in institution, 4% can be used internally or can be also invested in institution. When I talk about the policies, that is important, but I wanted to talk here because it's good to see that is the ecosystems, are the companies, and also the companies are supporting financially universities. And I especially find it very important this system because usually if I'm in a normal system, what happens is I produce and I pay taxes, and this taxes goes to government, and the government gives tax money for research. Yeah, here we have a shortcut. At the end, we as industry, we don't pay taxes, but we have the possibility to invest our taxes explicitly, definitively direct to these universities that are doing R&D projects and patents and innovation with us. This is a kind of shortcut. With this process, I can guarantee that the tax that we are not paying are being channelized directly to the university that is working on projects together with us. If there is some doubts about this, we can deepen this after about the system. But this is one of the, if we talk here about semiconductor, our policies and innovation, I would say that's the most powerful part of this policy is the idea that the incentives are direct channelized to the institution. Questions? No?
No, so far I don't see anything.
Okay, then I will go to the history, exactly about the regulatory environment. Then I will talk a little bit about this. In the 80s, we had 23 companies here in Brazil producing semiconductors, believe me. We had a big start at the beginning. And then in 1984, they did here a closed policy that's called Reserva de Mercado, where we should not import anything and it should be developed in Brazil. This was for computers. We had some computer companies here like Itautec and others. And then we got the open market, the idea of the free market in 1990 in the Collor government. And then what they called here, we called it, that's in the very clear here now in our presentation, we call desmonte da indústria, because the whole industry could not survive this opening so quick. It was just an open market and the companies all disappeared. This was very, very aggressive movement. But then when they saw that happened, and after some changes and so on, they created 1991 the informatic law, the PPB. This is 30 years old this year, and it's a very important mechanism that brought the industry again back to Brazil. The idea of the PPB at the beginning was more focused on assembly, but this had always this part that I mentioned before. That's true for PPB and it's true for the PADIS. That is the idea that the company that follows the informatic law or the PPB, that we call PPB informatic law is the same, okay? Or the PADIS that comes a lot later, we'll see there, that's specific for semiconductor. Just to be very clear, informatic law is for products like a computer, a cell phone, a router, and the PADIS is for semiconductor. Semiconductor is a raw material for the equipment. Equipment and informatic law, and PADIS is for semiconductor. The most important part is both of this always had this R&D counterpart. What I mean is for PPB and for PADIS, it is depends on the law and depends on products. Let's say it's a 4 to 5% that the companies has to invest in R&D and has to also to show to the government that we do. Every year after you use the benefit, you have to show that you use 5% of your R&D, or say revenue, from your revenue you use in R&D. And it was a very important mechanism to increase also the share spent in R&D by companies. Because usually in emerging countries, you know better than me probably, because that is where you study. There is a moment and innovation and R&D, if you look at the data from World Bank, is more done by government, and there's a share that's done by private industry. And I don't know, yeah, obviously I'm not studying this theme. Probably you know better than me what is better, but the idea to have some share from the industry was pushed here by this policy. That is, like I said before, if we can pay taxes and the government can pay taxes and can put in innovation or give to institutes to do R&D. But in this way, you force the channel directly, because we don't pay to the government, but you pay directly to the university. And every year we do a report and you show that you invested this percentage in the in the institutions. And that also has a consequence that a lot of the electronic institutes in Brazil, they depend on the electronic industry and the semiconductor industry to survive and to be now, they receive a lot of money through the system. Yeah, I hope it is clear how it works. Yeah. And then I'll talk about, yeah, the rest of the historical context. Then we had the PPB. And here we had the Plano Real, 1994. I cannot talk a lot about because it was exactly the year I left Brazil to live in Germany to do my PhD. And then I stayed there to 2005. And as this is the 10 years that I was not in Brazil, but I know Plano Real was a change in our currency and also stabilization from the inflation. And then smart modules was created. They started assembling memory modules in Brazil. You know, for the computer, this memory module where you have a lot of chips. Yeah, it's a little board with a lot of chips that usually at the beginning of the computer history, also people used to buy one and put in the computer to increase the memories. Yeah. Then in 2002, they created a national plan for microelectronics. This was a very important milestone too, because we started to have grants for people specialized in microelectronics, master courses, PhD courses, PhD grants for universities abroad, all focus on microelectronics. This created a lot of professors with a lot of influences in microelectronics. We have a lot, also very important and relevant publications in Brazil, and a lot of collaboration, especially with Grenoble, France, and with IMEC in Belgium, a lot of different collaborations between universities and people here, professors that they got the PhD there and come back. Then we had in 2004, the innovation law. It is also a good milestone because based on innovation law, for example, a professor could license, go out, make a startup or some company, for example, and after a while come back, for example. There is some important instruments and innovation law from 2004. And then in 2005, SMART decided to start packaging semiconductors in Brazil. From all ABSEMI members, they are the first one to do it. And then I have to say, it was the year I come back to Brazil too, because I will start now to put CEITEC in the line. That's not here, but I will put in the line because I have this very clear in my head. 2000, Motorola decided to donate some equipment to make semiconductors to Brazil. And I think it was a Brazilian director that was a Brazilian, or someone had this idea and they wanted to dismount a line and they decided to give it here. They offered to São Paulo, but at the end, because of this, a bunch of professors that you have here in South Brazil for semiconductor electronics, they are referenced, like I say, some IEEE award winners and so on. They are very well connected. They brought the equipment to Porto Alegre. This equipment stayed because, just to be complement, equipment is good, but for installing this equipment, you need a clean room. And a clean room is a very expensive building that has a control of temperature and particles. Semiconductor production cannot accept to have particles. You have the air has to be very clean. And for this, we need a lot of utilities, big equipment that cleans the air. This is that has a very little number of particles that are accepted for semiconductor production. And then our Ministry of Science and Technology started to do a bit to construct this building in 2003 or 4. I don't know exactly, but this is this time. And in a moment in 2005 or 6, started building. A construction company received the task to build, and they constructed in the first clean room in the South Hemisphere, I think, or one of the first. At the beginning, CEITEC was not a government company, started as a private association that existed from 2005 to 2009. And if you look here, the line, you see the CEITEC 2009, but 2009 was only the date that the government-owned company was created as a Sociedade Anônima, as a SA, before existed as a private association that was responsible for all tasks that had to be done at CEITEC to create the company. 2009, then they had the building, and then they moved the equipment. They had to refurbish the equipment, put inside of the building. Okay, then we had here the PADIS law created in 2007. Yeah. Then in 2010, this was created the GT-PPB. That's a working group for PPB that was between 2 ministries. Sorry. At this time, it was a industry and commerce and ministry that doesn't exist anymore. It was all merged to economy ministry this last period, but it used to be the MDIC and MCTI, Ministry of Science and Technology. Then SMART started using PADIS in 2011. Yeah. And you can see it was not easy. PADIS was created 2007, but could be really used in 2011. Yeah. There was many reasons, but at the beginning, this is a good case study also from the moment that the policy is created to the time it can really be used. Yeah. If you don't, yeah, it can take time, especially if it's a complex industry like ours. We have some lessons learned, obviously, in the process. It's an interesting case also to see, but I will not come in this detail. I think we have something maybe in the presentation about this. Then SMART started using the PADIS, but we want to stress, eventually we stress this always because PADIS is very close to termination now, but our Congress is helping us to renew, and we believe it will be renewed in January 2022. And then we used to stress this to say, although it was created 2007, it was really being used in 2011. That's why effectively we have less time than it seems. Then by 2011, also HT Micron as a work right now was created. In 2014, we created a SEMI, this business association, the association for the industry, semiconductor industry. Then Multilaser joined. Multilaser is a company that exists before, but the part doing semiconductor was created in 2014, also to package. Then 2015, Unitec was created. I started working at Unitec in 2014. That's why Unitec is pointed 2015, but exists a little bit before. Yeah. Unitec was also a wafer fab that is in Belo Horizonte. Arthur probably heard about. Yeah, it's changed some hands and had some investor problems. And then Qualcomm established 2016, ADATA 2017, and 2019. And then we have after a panel from the World Trade Organization, and we created a new PPB and a new PADIS because these policies had some questioning, and then we adapted. We can also discuss about this if it's interested what was not well accepted and how we changed this to let's say align this with the best practice of World Trade Organization. Okay, that is the full history, very short. Yeah, I'm happy to deepen after because this is very important. I want only to say one thing more. We can see that PADIS was created, and after PADIS was created, a lot of companies established as a result of this policy, because we need this. And that's what we keep saying now that our law is in Congress. We hope it will be voted next week or next 2 weeks. Now we have urgency in the law project that our policies are now extended to 2029. That's the date also that the PPB or informatic law expire. We are working that both laws are aligned in timing. Yeah. Okay, here I think it is something about the PADIS, and we are stressing created in 2007, but enabled only in 2011. Yeah, because there are some adjustments to be made, and when you start using, this is a complicated system, you start seeing problems. Yeah, and yeah, we had to do a lot of changes till it was been able to be used by the companies. The benefits that PADIS law is one of the biggest incentives in Brazilian history, because we don't pay taxes for the whole BOM of the products. Also no import taxes for the equipment for fabrication of semiconductors. We used not to pay sales taxes and purchase taxes. That was then questioned by World Trade Organization, and then we changed. Now we pay, but we have some credits from government. We have income tax reduction, and we have a financial credit up to 30.1% of the revenue. This is now what we have in a alignment with the World Trade Organization. I think it's very important also to say this is very different from the policy we had before, that is the closed, because it is an open market. Every company producing in Brazil don't have to be Brazilian. I'm working in a Korean company. Every company that is established in Brazil can use these incentives. The incentive is also not mandatory. For example, suppose you don't want to invest the 5% in R&D, you can say I will not use. And then you work in Brazil as a very normal company. That means that's not a force to be used. That's completely voluntary. You can participate in the system, but you don't need to. Yeah, that's very important to know that is this way. The duties then in counterpart for benefits, you had to do R&D investments, like I said, the minimum, at least 5% of the revenue. And this is, like I mentioned before, I think it's a very interesting idea, because in other cases I would pay taxes, and these taxes could be distributed in the science and technology chain. Today we do this directly. For example, here at HT Micron, we have a very strong partnership with Unicinos, that university we are in the campus, and we invest our 1% of the revenue directly in this university and do projects together. We had some patents together with them and some innovations, and we also developed a product that we are now exporting, and it was also a result of this. The problem that we have right now is that the main benefits, the purchase exemption, financial credit, will expire in January 2022. And also the mandatory 5% R&D. This is very bad for the institutes and would be also very bad for companies. And that's why ABSEM is working very hard to renew PADIS at least to 2029. And now we were working with Congress. This is a law project that's now active in the Congress. And we are very, very confident that we will be able to renew, because it's very important for Brazil. Yeah. Okay. About what we have today in Brazil, we have more than 27,000 square meters in 45,000 square meter manufacturing areas installed in Brazil. We produce world-class components, yeah, and that's very important. We produce the components that goes in the cell phones in Brazil. There is a lot of cell phone companies assembling in Brazil. They are not designing the cell phones in Brazil, okay? That's I have to be very clear. That's a wish, obviously. We want to attract more companies to be able also to innovate, to do things. But today they are assembling here, but they all have informatic law. That means they are also doing innovation. Sometimes they had huge development centers in app. We had in some places institutes. Samsung has a big institute in Manaus developing apps for cell phones, and also they also produce design some other products, because they have to invest also the 5% in R&D, like everyone. And Samsung, Lenovo, Motorola, Apple had sometimes also produced some cell phones in Brazil. They are not present anymore. There is very important products, obviously Brazil is a little bit lower purchase country. That's why we don't have maybe the top cell phones, very expensive infrastructure here, just because it makes no sense. But for mainstream products, we have everything here, and the same products that are being manufactured in other places of the world, they are being produced then in Brazil. And we have class clean room class 10,000 and 100,000, just to explain this classifications about the number of particles that can be in a cubic meter of air. That's why they are more clean or less clean, depending on what you are producing. It's a wafer or packaging or types of products. We need more or less clean room. We employ today 2,500 highly qualified people, engineers, hundreds of researchers, a lot of PhDs, masters, engineers, and researchers. We paid also with the benefits that we have. We paid 200 million Brazilian reais in federal taxes, paid annually, equivalent to 70% of all sector tax waivers. And this industry, our members, they did more than 50 patents since we are producing here. Yeah, I can also explain a little bit more. If you're interested, can ask at the end. I will explain a little bit what we usually do here. Let's see, I'm the time. Okay, I'm 1 hour. I will try to go very quick to the end, and that we can do the questions. Yeah, about the semiconductor industry, we earned today in 2020 3.1 billion Brazilian reais. That has been growing every year. Yeah, we just reduced a little bit because of the pandemic and because of the shortage. We need the other semiconductors to be able to produce the cell phones. If other parts are missing, then we don't have a place for memories. The mainly product that we are producing in Brazil today is memories. Yeah. We had 2.5 billion in investment in capex for production. It's a very capex intensive industry. We invested 670 million Brazilian reais in R&D. Yeah, that's a very important number. It's very important to see. Part is going to institutions, part are being used internally by the companies, but it's increased a lot the percentage of R&D being invested in Brazil. And we have 20 qualified companies in Brazil for front-end and back-end process, packaging and test, that we say advanced package, when we use a lot of different dyes inside of a package. Wafer diffusion, we had the Unitec is now in a little bit in on hold project. That's what you know, and CEITEC is in a liquidation process that is still being questioned, but it's in the process. And some design houses I showed before. Just to talk about CEITEC, ABSEMI also wrote a letter of support for CEITEC. CEITEC used to be a member, yeah, and ABSEMI also suggested some solutions, some possibilities in order to solve the issues that the government brought to us about CEITEC. We did a lot of discussions about CEITEC. We had discussions with the ministry and so on. We have been very involved in the process, and CEITEC was a member too, just to be clear about this. And there is a lot of the products being made today in Brazil developed, yeah, and this is the memory products that you usually use inside. You have notebooks and desktops and servers and smartphones and tablets and electronic so video games and ATM machines and security cameras and so on. This is the chain that we are part of. Today we are expanding also. Here you see a lot of memories, but for example, HT Micron now is doing some chips for IoT, Internet of Things, and also we started to export. And this is a direct result of the 5% R&D that we have to invest. Then we take this money and we develop new products that will be enable us to go more to other markets. Yeah, that's summarizing. We have a world level largest global companies manufacture its products in Brazil. We are the largest industrial park outside China with manufacturing of high-tech products. We employ 234,000 direct jobs in an electronic industry. We have a big market for TV, cell phones, and computers. And 90% of these products, the main products, are produced in the country, mainly Zona Franca de Manaus, but also in the country. These products, they have the same features, the same technological levels found abroad. Like I said, it's just that our market is a little bit less, let's say, for high-end products. We are more focused on the medium-sized products, but they are also all done here. Yeah. And the price today is equivalent to the US. Is not that we sell local products manufactured in Brazil are more expensive. Brazil is very competitive in terms of people and engineers. We have been doing some benchmarks with China. We are definitely not more expensive. We are very competitive. And we have a proximity here with a lot of markets. Yeah, for example, whole South America and Mexico. Yeah, here's about the ICTs. Yeah, we had like I said, companies doing a lot of design and manufacturing tests. I will not go in this. There's a lot of technical terms, but if you are interested, you can come back. Then we have now been looking for, because of the shortage for ICs for cars. Yeah, that's about car. That's about the shortage. Yeah, and one thing that I want to talk about the shortage is the problem with the shortage is that our supply chain is very distributed. Like I said, 50% of the wafers are done by TSMC in Taiwan. A lot of memory are focused in Korea. And then we have some packages company, for example, in Malaysia, and then we have to do the whole chain. Moreover, the industry are working years to do very, what you call just in time. That is, you don't do huge inventories and let money stalled, but you buy just what you need. And then in the time of pandemic, when the supply chains were disrupted, it was very hard for the semiconductor industry. And we expect next year to be also very difficult, maybe in the middle of next year to start regularized. On the other side, this showed also very important importance of this industry for a lot of countries and helped us a lot for getting some awareness here to continue our policies now, especially to extend also PADIS. And a lot of politicians now know about semiconductors, what's very important for us. A lot of people got in contact with the term. And well, the last thing I want to say is Brazil is also being very successful doing startups in innovation in the last years. A lot of investment funds that started to boom. And today we have more than 15 unicorns, and I have 70 other startups that are close to be able to be unicorns. And this is very important for a more homogeneous distribution, yeah, that we have also growth in every parts of the world. And then I think it's very important to see that Brazil is also growing and could push the growth of South America. And I also know about a lot of startups in Colombia and Peru, and Argentina has also some unicorns. It's very important to see this innovation being able to create economic growth in South America. Yeah, that is from my side. Then let's use another hour to discuss. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Edelweis. It was really nice for us to understand a bit more about this industry and about the policy that took place in Brazil. And I'll give the word to Carlota because I believe she wanted to say to maybe make the first suggestion or comment. Carlota.
Thank you. Yes, Edelweiss, thank you very much. That was a very, very impressive presentation. The first thing that I note is that Brazil is much more of a semiconductor producer than we ever imagined. It is, it's very impressive. And the fact that you say that you can compete with China is almost difficult to believe, but if you say, I guess it's true. I understand because I understand that when the CEITEC personnel was, there was this confusion that perhaps they will be closing the company, that a British company and a French company came in and employed quite a few of the design engineers also. So you have design, you have wafer, you have assembly. It's quite amazing. Actually, I think it's news to all of us that there was such an enormous capacity in Brazil. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I would like to know whether you think that these very aggressive policies of the government, both pro-industry and pro-market and then pro-government, all these things that have happened one after the other, whether the current industry is somehow the result of those policies. If you think that this happened in spite of government or thanks to government, what's your view on that? That would be very interesting for us. And the other thing, okay, you want to answer that and then I'll say something. Maybe that's
as you prefer. As you prefer.
No, go ahead, because otherwise we accumulate too many questions.
Okay. Yes. I want to add one more thing, that is semiconductors is one of the industries that receive the biggest incentives in the whole world. It is a very incentivized industry because it's so capital intensive and that is so basic. That's what I want to say. I mean, I don't believe the industry would exist without this. I mean, yes, I think this is crucial. It has been crucial, and that's what we continue to defend, and this is what we are also seeing a lot of engagement from our Congress people now. There is a, let's say, unanimous idea about this. We had also a public audience, I think 1 month ago, in Congress, public audience about the incentives that this industry received in all the world. And yes, without these policies, this industry would not exist in Brazil.
Very good. And does the WTO say anything about that?
No, because it is a lot of things that the WTO allowed to do. I mean, we learned a lot in this process we had. For example, there is nothing against a government giving money for R&D, for example. This is not a problem. This is allowed because this is what you can do to develop. And this is something that we showed to World Trade Organization that we had this counterpart. This was key to be able to maintain our industry, was to show that it's not just giving some tax incentives. The companies has to do the R&D in counterpart. And at the end is the same as, like I said, in usual thing, you pay taxes, the government distribute this to the innovation or universities and centers. And what you are doing is just channelize directly, and you know that is directly for research based on for semiconductor. But at the end, we are doing not paying taxes, but we are having costs too to invest in R&D. That is something that can grow whole. And this is very key because for the way World Trade Organization understood this. Because if the government is able to pay for R&D, and we are doing the same, just as the other thing, it's not like tax incentives without a no counterpart.
Okay, that's very interesting. And it's good that the industry is conscious of the fact that the reason why it exists is government policy. This is well known. I mean, it's not that people are discussing it and wondering. That's interesting. That's important to know. The other thing that I would like to understand a little more, if I were to say what would be the best policies for Latin America with semiconductors, I would never have said that what you had to do was semiconductors for TV sets or for computers or phones or anything. I would have thought that we would go to the area where you do semiconductors for industries that are not electronics. So for agriculture, for recognizing things, for banks, for all the things that use more like Internet of Things on the one hand, and the other chips that are specifically designed for industries that are powerful in Brazil so that you make them more competitive thanks to the introduction of these niche product things. That's what I would have thought. So maybe I'm wrong.
I'll explain you the logic because it's very clear. The idea is to do a sustainable system. In this case, what happened is that TVs, computers, and PCs, they are already being assembled here. And the memories, they are standard. I mean, the memories are, let's say, a standard product. And this is a typical, what we call the substitution, yeah? We are doing first the substitution industry, and then this 5% of the revenue of the substitution is used in R&D to generate the future. Now we are doing chips with IoT, and for agriculture, we are doing this now. But as a result, from the 1 billion you already have, then we started producing innovation. Because if you start, innovation costs money, and someone had to pay this money. And this is more sustainable, first you substitute, and then you use the benefits from the substitution to leverage more innovative, more risky products.
That's very smart. And actually, I suppose what you're saying also is that you have to learn with these basic things in order to be able to go further. So it serves as a ground. But I wonder if Mexico or Argentina or Chile or some other country could actually start at this stage, or if it's too late, because you people have been going at it since the 90s, so from the early moments. So do you think
it's difficult because I think
the only country that can do it?
What works for Brazil is because of our size. As I always say, you have to see what is good for one is not good for water. We can do this because we have 210 people buying smartphones. It's a lot of people. And we are using our local market, what China did also. This probably doesn't work. Korea had to do another strategy because Korea is a different
To export,
country, different size. Yeah, this is a very important. The policies cannot be just used from one country to the other. You have to find your own way.
Very good, thank you. That, I think that's, the whole thing is extremely interesting. I think we should understand it better. All of us should study it when thinking of development. And I think what you just said is very important. The conditions of each country are different. Sometimes we talk about Latin America as if it were one single space. We have some things in common, but we don't have 210 million people. So, you know, it's just, and the Brazilian miracle meant that you people were producing all those mass production products already. So as they incorporated electronics, all you had to do was to insist on using locally produced standard chips to add to something that you were already making. So it isn't that you started out proposing to export chips, but you were actually just further import substitution, continuing import substitution. And that's an interesting thing to understand too. Yeah, thank you. I think this was very, very instructive, extremely useful, and it helps us understand a lot about Brazil. Okay,
so
let's open to the floor.
Yes, I see Benha. It's good to see you. You have raised your hand, so yeah, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, thanks, Arthur. Thanks, Edelweiss, for your interesting presentation. I was wondering and following up on Carlota's question. Now that you in Brazil already developed like the core technology of the semiconductor technologies industry, is it feasible, or do you see in the near future feasible to change or diversify to a related complex industry like the other stages of the global value chain of the semiconductors? And now with the experience of Corona, where we found all over the world a shortage in the first stages of that of those products, do you see that the industry in Brazil could diversify to that related knowledge? That's the first question. And the second one, very related to that, is do you think that the European Mercosur agreement could help Brazilian products in the high-tech sector, specifically the semiconductor industry, to penetrate into the European market? Do you think that's a possibility? And related to that question as well, what do you see with the market within the Mercosur and within South America, as you are like the strongest in the semiconductor industry in South America, for sure? Thank you.
Yeah, that's 3 questions. Maybe I forgot one, but I will start for the first one. Yeah, I can give an example what we saw. The fact that we had, for example, there's very advanced companies here doing a lot of electronics. We have also companies exporting very niche products, like we had companies that do some routers or export or specific automation. Especially, we are very strong in automation for the Petrobras platforms and so on, and our solutions that we are also exporting. It was, for example, used now in the COVID pandemic to do the respirators, for example. We did a task force very, very quick. They could produce a lot of respirations all in Brazil. And this was showed very quick how you can use bases, install bases to adapt something when the need is there. Maybe in the past we didn't buy from here because just it was cheaper to change. We cannot have this naive idea that we will be self-sustained or produce everything. That's not the idea. The idea is everyone has a little bit, and if everyone has a little bit, then we exchange. And then I go to your second question. I'm okay with the collaboration. I think every time is very good to have, but when it is a kind of a parity that you can, I have something to offer, the other country has also something to offer in the same, let's say, eye level. Yeah, this is my dream, that everyone could negotiate in the same level, that you don't have to say, I need your technology because I have not, but I have some technologies for some things and you have another technology for other things. Let's exchange. This is, I think, would be the best for every relation. I love strategic relation. I do strategic alliances here at HT. This is here a Korean company working in Brazil and cooperating with the companies in all the world. I think if you use this to distribute value everywhere, this is a good thing. In terms of Europe and the agreement, I can fortunately not judge. I participate of some discussions in Argentina, Buenos Aires, about the electronic part, where we look at what is best for exchanging with Europe. But about I think the mainly part was the agriculture. Then I cannot talk about this because I don't have the knowledge to be able. But I'm always positive for internationalization and exchange, if it's parity, if it's able to, yeah, be in a good way for both countries.
Thank you.
The third question I forgot.
The third question was about inside South America and specifically with Mercosur. I mean, like, you are the strongest in the industry, so how do you see, like, you Brazilians penetrating in the South American market with the products? So besides the fact that what you said, you have like 210 million inhabitants in Brazil and consumers at the end of the day, but you also have South American consumers, and with the free trade agreement that we have within the Mercosur, I think that's something that, I mean, I suppose you're leveraging on that. That's my question.
Yeah, this change in the history, it would be probably an issue for another complete call here, but I can say in the past, it was time where we produced, every cell phone was produced in Brazil, was exported to Argentina, for example. Today, none. This changes a little bit depending on the market, depending on the policies of the other countries. This is complex thing. Yeah, but I don't have this ready here to discuss about, but this is something that is we can analyze. Yeah, important thing.
I see that Pavel has his hand raised as well.
Thank you for your talk. It has been very, very interesting to know how policy can shape in some way the direction of an industry in a South American country. And my question, I come from Peru. Of course, many questions already have been raised by Carlota and Benjamin. But one of my other questions, and of course you have replied those, but I have one more, is about the future of the industry. How do you see, what are the challenges the industry is going to face in the next years? And besides that, what are the challenges from the policy side in Brazil, particularly? Do policymakers have to continue doing the same policies, or you see that the kind of policy instruments are going to change given these challenges? I don't know much about this industry, so I just very general questions about that.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think the point is the policies has also evolved, because like I said at the beginning, we had a policy more focused on substitution to use the local market, but then you have to change a little bit to focus more in innovation on other parts. This is happening also in Brazil, that the government has been more, let's say, selective for the R&D, kind of R&D they accepted. At the beginning, they accepted, for example, simpler things. Now they are more asking for R&D more elaborated. They are also expecting the companies to use this for other kind of products. And I can give this as example what we are doing now. The company I work, we started doing the substitution with the memories that we still do, and it's very important because it's our main sustainability. But we use the R&D money to do IoT that we are exporting. We are exporting now for a lot of different places, and this is obviously the kind of second phase, a phase where we started to do more innovation, less substitution, but more innovation. And you see also the number of startups and things happening that we are creating a more relevant industry in terms of innovation creation. This is the important part. Did I answer your question?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
I have, oh, Carlota, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's okay. If I will go after whoever.
Okay. I have a question. It's more a clarification and then a question. In your one of the first slides, you were talking about the value chains, and I didn't understand exactly if those were like steps with different values of technological capabilities, or if they don't actually mean that one, for example, the design, the wafers, the packaging, the fabless, the foundries, the OSATs. Mm-hmm. Is there like a hierarchy of technologies for them?
I will use an example. I think it is very simplified, but it's helped a little bit. Think in an old CD player for music, yeah? The design is like the voice of the artist, is the creation. The wafer is like the CD. You used to have the compact disc. Someone take the music and save. Suppose it's not done in your computer at home, that it would be a company that could do this. You give your music and they produce a lot of CDs copied with this music. And the packaging is the cover. The marketing part would be the cover, the little book that used to be with the CD. There are three parts. Yeah, the design is where the biggest added value, because the design is, let's say, what the really innovation is more innovative. On the other side, the technology for like the CD, yeah, it is also evolved. It was a CD, then a DVD, or different. It's used also a lot of machines. It's very similar in terms of industry to understand. And the second one, the packaging, was also more complicated because you have some plastics, and you could open and then put the book line inside, or you could put more than one CD inside. Yeah, put two CDs that you open there. This is very similar to our industry.
And which part is the front end in the back end?
We called. You have to be very careful with these terms, because if you take this chain that I said to you, the packaging is the back end, and the wafer is the front end, and the first is the fabless. But inside of the wafers, they also call front end the part of the transistors, and back end the metallization of the wafers. And then sometimes you're talking with someone that talks wafer and talks also about back end and front end, but only in a wafer. And this is a little bit confusing. Yeah, yes. Just to be sure that yeah, you find both.
Yes, it is. And also because I guess that's the main question. So we've had wafer producers in Brazil, CEITEC and Unitec, and now we have mainly packaging, right?
Yes.
And where does, for example, Intel and TSMC stands, and what are perhaps the steps if you wanted to, I don't know, produce the chips that are now lacking in the automobile industry, and we stopped the production in Brazil and lost so many jobs, and car companies left Brazil.
Yeah, let's say it this way. The first part is Intel is an IDM, as integrated design manufacturer. They have the design, and they have their own wafers. At the beginning, the industry was IDM. It was everyone has their own factory. Yeah, you can do also. We can also do all three parts. And TSMC was the first one to offer, let's say, wafers as a service. Like you had let's say a music producer, you had someone singing and also doing the CDs and the whole chain. And then you say, okay, there is a guy that do only CDs, not only for me, but for others. Then it's more scale. And then they offer this as a service. But in the moment that you receive this as a service, you had less control because it's outsider. You are outsourcing a part of the chain. And this is a different strategy. And this has happened. And also now, because of the disruption, there is some companies that are talking about doing this back. We see also third companies like you see now Tesla doing their own chips, for example, design, because they don't want to be, let's say, dependent on someone else. Or Intel used sometimes ARM processors, and then they decide not to use or to do their own processors. This is a very common idea in our industry. Sometimes you outsource, and then we see this is strategic. You can buy back, or you can start doing this internally. And we see in our industry is very, very common. That changes a lot. About the automotive chain, we have been also saying that in Brazil, there is no country today that can produce all chips you need in a car. That's not the idea. No one will be able to do it. But as like I said before, we also always defend the idea that if everyone has a piece, then we can negotiate better because if everyone has a contribution. What is bad is when one has all technology and the other has no technology. This is not okay. But if I have a technology for one part of the car, you have technology for the other part of the car, then we can negotiate and have everything. Because it's a kind of distribution of innovation. And this is something that we have been discussing here. The automotive industry is helping us because we had the same idea that we have for computers. We have computers being made in Brazil, and TVs and smartphone, and we are in the chain. We are aiming to have some chips as a part of the chain of the cars, but we will not be able to produce all chips for the cars. No one did. Also Europe, no. Europe announced a lot of investment now to bring some of the semiconductor chain back to Europe. This is in all over the news. But they also know that is not possible. Also, US, if you look at Semiconductor Industry Association, they say I think they announced a huge package for, I think, $52 billion for semiconductor to be able to have for maybe 30% of their internal cost. It's not going to happen that someone is independent in this field. Never.
Just a quick follow-up. The chips that you how do you say that you encapsulate at HT Micron? Yeah, where do they come from, and what kind of technology is that? That part that comes from abroad.
Yeah, we usually receive the wafer with the design. In this case, for the memories, for example, they come from Korea because Korea today is the main for the whole world, the main producer of memory chips is Korea. China is now starting to produce some DRAMs, but it's mainly Korea. And we receive the wafers, and then we cut and we put 10 inside of a packaging. This is a very, very, very complicated process because we thin a wafer that is more fine than a paper. We can fold it because it's very thin, and then we put all step
stack on top of each other.
Yes, we stacked chips, and you have to connect everything in a very little scale to be able to put in the cell phones. We could also offer this for the cars, for example. Memory use everything. Cars is also lots of memories, but cars has also sensors. The cars has have processing connectivity. There is different chips. If we do other chips, for example, that's what I showed is IMCP. It's had 57 die parts inside. And they mainly are from HT Microelectronics, is a Italo-French company, as a European company, but you have a part is from US. We have some parts from other countries. We have a lot of different, it's a mixed product. Then we have now new product that is coming also mainly from US, from another supplier that I cannot mention because of the NDA is not released anymore. And we will launch this new product, but it's different. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Carlota had a question, then
But
we
I
go to
think,
Catalina afterwards.
Pues Catalina is also
Yeah,
asking.
Okay,
let me
I'll let Catalina then.
fill in when there's no one else.
So is my turn or is Carlos?
Yeah, it's yours. Go ahead, Catalina, please.
Okay, sorry. I was commuting home, so I was in a rush. Okay, so the first question is, I don't know if I missed it, but I don't know if you mentioned if Brazil's government had a mission-driven outlook for creating these policies. I mean, because what they did is, what I understood is that they directed taxes to R&D and like a market correction maneuver thing for the industry. But I don't know if they have, and I think this aligns with a question that was made before, if they have a vision of what they want to do for Brazil's industry, the semiconductor industry as a whole, as a vision. And sorry, I was rushing. And the next question is, what variables do you think from the context from Brazil made these policies actually work and be successful as they are? And thirdly, I don't know if I can contact you later, because this is actually the subject of my research.
Yes, sure.
And I didn't know this case, and I would love to go further with this. Those are my questions.
Yeah. Okay. I think so. If you look at the history that I showed before, it was something that started from very, very early, before color era. We had already the 23 companies in microelectronics, and then we had the PITSI. That's one policy that had this as a center, and then we have the Plano Nacional de Microeletrônica that's still today a very strong line of the Minister of Science and Technology. I can say that there is obviously government changes the whole time, but I think in the Ministry of Science and Technology, there is this idea from the microelectronics and semiconductors as a focus, very strong always. They changed now a little bit to something called Plano Nacional de IoT, because semiconductors is the basis of IoT, and like Carlota said before, it's very clear that now we have to use this technology also to increase our agriculture, to improve our cities. We did a national plan of IoT, but this is not that they don't support semiconductors anymore. It's just a little bit more a second phase, like I think Pavel or yeah, asked before, or it was I don't get all names very quick, but the National Plan for IoT and Digital Transformation is now the name of the whole, but is, let's say, a continuation of the project, and the people that are interacting with us from the Ministry of Science Technology are the same. We have can name a guy because we love him. There's an Henrique Miguel from Ministry of Science and Technology. He is there and is doing this since 2005 when I came back to Brazil. This is the same point of contact. It's the person that we say that has the face of the PPB and the PADIS. We saw him, and now that PPB has 30 years, the minister, it's not the minister, it's the current minister, mentioned that, because this is very important. Someone that gets this history and continues to carry the strategy also if a lot of things change. Yeah. I think it was, did I answer everything or?
Yes, yes. So I understand that when I asked you about the variables that you think that made these policies successful, I think this person being there from the right beginning, from 16 years ago, is a key component of making this policies. Maybe the governments change, but if this person is there or the minister has the same policy, maybe is what I understand that keeps them going, right?
Yeah, as is, we use here to say is we need a vision from state, not a vision from governments, but obviously this is government dependent. I cannot say different, more or less for every country. Yeah? This is always the same, but the idea is always that you can keep a certain continuity for something, because if you change every time, then this is not possible to do. And we have been, like I said, the PPB, that's the informatic law, is 30 years old. This is very important, and will still be valid to 2029. And our PADIS law was a little bit shorter, but we are now receiving a lot of support from Congress to be valid to 2029. Obviously, there is always a lot of work to do. We go there. We have to work to let's say inform the new people that come and go, and we have to work also on this as an industry. But we got a lot of support also from the state people that stays every time. Yeah. And if you, I'm happy to help you. Yeah, sure. If you what you need, can send email.
Thank you very much. I will for sure.
That's a awesome lesson to learn. Carlota, do you want to say something? Andrea also.
Andrea's
okay,
once.
Andrea, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. My question is about the legal foundations of the policies, because you had at the beginning that very interesting timeline showing that and you just mentioned that the informatics law is 30 years old, and that also that the Brazilian innovation law is from 2004. So that gives me, and I'm Brazilian as well, and a lawyer, so that gives me a sense of what happens between the creation of an industry and the institutional side underpinning the policies. So I would be very interested to hear a little bit more on your, from your perspective from the industry side. How do you assess that evolution, and how does that work? Because we see such a long leap, no, between the creation of the law and the different pieces of legislation and policies that come And so for other countries that might be interested in learning a bit more, how do we move from the vision or the intention to create an industry and a policy from the actual implementation and the working of it? So if you could comment a little bit,
yeah,
would be very interested. Thanks.
I will. I understand exactly what you're talking. One thing that I think is extremely important is that, at least from the Ministry of Science and Technology, from the area that I'm talking about, it has been very, very active integration. They work a lot with the mechanism that you know probably very well. It's called consulta pública. Always they do the law and they involve us through the associations. Yeah. For example, I participate of the ABSEMI. I'm a director. I'm a board member of the PADIS Brasil. That's another institution, and also ABINI, that's the electronic industry. In these industry bodies, we participated in the discussion about what is good for industry, but not in the sense that we say only what would help us, but as an institution, exactly. That's why we don't participate as a company, but as a group representing the full industry that represents the whole interest from everyone in terms of growth and job generation and development. And also after, usually the ministry, at least the Ministry of Science and Technology, uses a lot this mechanism. I found this extremely important. This is the public consultation. I don't know how they say in English, but they publish a draft of the law, and everyone has a certain time to criticize, to contribute, to write about. And a lot of our organs do now. Right now is I answered today one on Anatel about frequency bands, or always evolving. This makes longer. Obviously, the process is a little bit longer, but it's very participative. Everyone can contribute a little bit. For the associations are very strong on this. Yeah.
But
did they answer your question?
Just a follow up. Yes, just a follow up on that. But I was also interested on the implementation side. No, so if the law is 1991, sorry, no, and this is a long process also to move forward and generating those incentives and creating the procedures for those to work. So yeah, how do you? What's your assessment of how these things work? How could they be eventually improved, and so on? Thanks.
Yeah. The informatic law, I cannot say a lot about, because we use we are in the chain more the PADIS. Maybe I use more PADIS because informatic law, and I come to Brazil back 2005. Then there is a part that I didn't experience here. As I showed, the PADIS was launched 2007, but you could effectively use 2011, because when you start using, you see a lot of problems sometimes. That's Brazil also a lot complicated sometimes to do it. But for example, one thing that was complication, just to give an example, what we face when you do this kind of laws, is that the PPB is based on product. For example, I'm a company, and let's say I have I sell two different notebooks. Notebooks, I mean, really paper, yeah, just to make more simple. One I produce here in Brazil, the other I import from China, let's say this way. Then I can apply, for example, in PPB, this is incentive because this is produced in Brazil, and the other one, no incentive because it's being imported. That's okay. But when we did the PADIS, we did at the beginning the same idea. PADIS-Semiconductor, but there is one caveat that we didn't know at the beginning, that PADIS is, for example, for the whole company, because it's giving also the corporate tax, imposto de renda da pessoa. Then we cannot separate what is coming from one and it's coming from other. It was very complicated, and we had to change the law. Is then you are only allowed to do this in the CNPJ, in this company. We cannot do other products. I mean, in case in PADIS, for example, if you wanted to produce this locally and the other in China, you have to do two companies. One it will be the China and they have no incentives. On the other, we will do this. And then a lot of people had to do two companies to be able to tackle this. And then everyone today is split in two companies. And this is what I said, as the kind of things that you were learning and adapting. Yeah. We had to adapt to be able to use. And then Smart Modular has two companies, Smart Module, that's PPB company, and the Smart Module Semiconductor, that is the using PADIS, for example. Multilaser has also, Multilaser is a company, and they have Multilaser components, that is only from PADIS. And this is the kind of things that we have been learning then how to do and how to adapt, because it could not be copied, for example, for the PPB. I don't know if this is the kind of example that you're looking for. Yeah.
All right. Igor, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Edelweiss. Nice presentation, very interesting. I have a question. I was wondering what could have gone with the policy implemented for the semiconductor industry in Brazil after many government incentives. These systems had government incentives, like another country, of course, tax incentive, credit with subsidies, rates, grants, support from development bank. At the same time, there was a certain articulation between the companies and the government in search of the same objective. In addition, a positive environment was created in the south of the country with university, government, companies, and a sector innovation system. But the lack of policy continuity is undoubtedly a problem, of course, in Brazil after the last 5 years, especially. It's a problem politics here. But do you believe that the lack of government purchase signal is an element that was missing for the industry to rise in Brazil? The government purchase, what do you think about this?
Yeah, let's say just one thing. Yeah, we don't have a discontinuity of our policies. Yeah. Our policies, the PPB law is 30 years old, is still valid and will still stay to 2029. And also PADIS was terminating now, but it was the period of the law. The law was planned to terminate 2022. And now we're working with Congress to approve the extension. The process is being approved. It's in process of being approved, but we had the public audience in Congress some weeks last week, and the deputies was very positive to continue our policies, because this is no one is able to finish this process. We have a Congress, we have a system, we have institutions. I mean, there's everyone works together. Our policies are still valid. They are legally valid. Just to be clear, that there is the liquidation of CEITEC because there is a privatization process that have been going on. But in our case, our policies are all still okay. And the finishing of PADIS, like I said, this was in law from the beginning, created to finish January 2022. And now we are working to extend. About local purchase, using the purchase power of government, we have been discussing this a long time, because this is a mechanism that some countries use and some not. We had I think a nationalization plan in the past a lot for Petrobras that used to do a nationalization of some parts. We had also a law for giving some preference margin for bids for Brazilian products, but this was terminated because we also heard it's not very well accepted from the World Trade Organization that you give Some benefits are not allowed, but I think the purchase power is a good thing to, let's say, to push the local consume. Yeah, because government is producing, is good that government is also purchasing because it's locally. I'm not very well versed in this kind of policies, but I know that we had some in the history. Yeah, and the discussions still going. Yeah, we always talked again about having some policies this way. But just to be clear, also that you understand, in Brazil we have a law that we have to do a bid for everything, and there is very few exceptions. I think in principle also a government company has to do a bid to buy from another government company. It's not so that a government company can sell directly without a bid to the others.
So Carlota, we are running out of time, but I think we can always listen a bit from you. So go ahead.
Yeah. Please. Also, we began late, so we have a little bit more time. I have two very different questions. One, Edelweiss, is what exactly was CEITEC producing, and what is it no longer producing? I mean, what is lost in this whole game in terms of the products and the knowledge?
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, we have to be very clear about the facts. As the equipment that CEITEC had at the beginning, CEITEC started because we received the equipment from Motorola 2000. And this equipment, they stayed for 5 years in a storage till the building was built. Yeah, construction was ready. And then the equipment also have to be refurbished. More equipment was acquired. And it takes a lot of time to develop a process from scratch. And then CEITEC had an agreement with a company in Germany to license a process to do wafers. The idea was to do wafers. But in parallel, there is a huge group of design. CEITEC also hired a lot of people to do design. And the design was very successful. They had RFID products. They did a chip for a passport. They had, and then they started doing packaging. At the end, CEITEC had all three parts. Design. I think they had a lot of people doing design. Definitely more than 50 engineers. They had the idea to do wafers. I really cannot say to you how long, how far they are gone to the wafer production, because I left the company 2009. But the initial idea was with the wafers, and the third part was packaging. They had also packaging for RFIDs, and they had packaging for smart cards that they could be used also for the passport. I know that they have a lot of patents that they produced for, especially always RFID and smart card kind of chips. That is a security for the passport. You know, in the first page of the passport, this little chip that's going inside. I know that they have been doing other projects for government, but I don't have information exactly what they are. Yeah, I'm not sure if they produced the wafers at the end. The wafers are little wafers. The wafers changed with time. Wafers change size. We started producing the history of semiconductor. Wafers of 6 inches, then we pushed to the 8 inches, and then we pushed to 12 inches. And usually the machines that CEITEC received from Motorola was to producing 6-inch wafers. And Unitec was done for 8-inch wafers. And every time we have to change the technologies, we have to change the machines, because the machines had also the wafers inside. I mean, if you have a machine that do a certain process, you don't have the right size of the wafer, then you have to buy another machine. And this is very cost intensive, you know. Every year, I cannot talk exactly about CEITEC, like I said, I left 2009, but to maintain this technology is very expensive, because you have to do a lot of investment in CapEx. Every year we do also, I can say to you, if you look at our slides, you see how much CapEx we invested also for the main companies that you assembly and test here. It's in order of various, at least 2 digits million dollar per year that we have to invest, also in packaging, for example, to be able to maintain our technology level, because it's changing every time. Like I say with the Moore's law, if I said at the beginning, every year you put double so much transistors in the same area, but to maintain this, you have to improve our machinery. It's very quick industry, and you have to keep pace with investment, especially for CapEx, to be able to maintain. Yeah.
Okay, my last question is a completely different one. It's a personal question. You are a woman engineer. You are a top person in the hierarchy in business. You relate to government and all these things, but you also have a husband, you have children, and you have to organize your life somehow. How has that experience been?
Yeah, I can add a little bit about this. I'm not just this. I was born, like I said, in a little city in Rio Grande do Sul. I was pregnant at 17. My daughter is 35. I have grandchildren too. I think that my daughter that was looking at the presentation, she's 26 years old. She was born in Germany, but my first daughter was born was 17. I don't know. That's a very interesting question you're asking me. You have to be organized, yes, sure. I remember when I was at my master's, during my master, I always talk about, I see a lot of people, I'm envy of people that have a lot of time at home and they can probably read papers the whole night and so on. But then I realized maybe someone was watching football or something different, and I use the time to be with my children. People use time outside of maybe no one is able to keep working the whole time, and yeah, the time the other people were probably in bars or playing games, video games, and yeah, watching football. I was with my children. But I here don't know.
The whole idea of these meetings is to connect with the world of work outside academia. You know, what is it like to be out there? So in a way, because you've been telling us about this industry and all these complications, and you were sort of not exactly present in terms of your own experience, which is one of the things that we try to convey in these meetings, you know, what is it out there where you're actually doing the things that academia is explaining or trying to understand, if you're working for the government or you're working for companies. And of course, being a woman is always a bit more complicated when it comes to working outside academia. Somehow academia is a little bit, not too much, but a little bit more understanding of the condition of women. But once you get out into that world, it seems like you haven't really noticed that you had a big problem.
Yeah, but you know, I realize that's clear. For example, when I was at Unitec, we participated in the, I'm not talking about the past. I'm talking about 2015 or 16. I don't remember exactly the year. We participated in a group in Stanford called System X. And I was participating in System X, and I participated in a meeting in System X. And this is Stanford. And it was 53 people, and I was the only woman.
The only woman.
Semiconductor, yeah.
Yeah,
this is
amazing.
not here. I'm talking about Stanford University. And I talk about university, and I'm talking about 2015. And I remember I was completely alone on this. The next year, I remember it was one more woman or two in this meeting. But that's very common in electronic, I think, in semiconductor. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, that you're also not only in the real world, but also in a man's world, because you're in the technology thing. And microelectronics and the whole of the information technology world is very masculine, more masculine than even mechanical engineering, which after a while started accepting women. But it's interesting that you seem to be very comfortable. So it is possible to be very comfortable.
I think it's yeah. I didn't use to make a problem of that. It's okay. I have to go through. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Sometimes I had some. I will not expand here, but I had some experience that were not well received here. In Germany, in Brazil, I had some, but you know, it's a part of. Then we have to just, yeah, let's say, continues to work and be good. Be good. Maybe the one thing I can say is what I learned very quick, especially when I started working in Germany. The first experience I had and my first work, it is that I cannot use, I have to know things to be in the same level, not different. Like I said, always good if you have the same eye level, yeah? No, don't feel little because you come from a little city or you come from a country, I don't know how country, or because you come from somewhere or where everyone is different. Just feel like you belong there, yeah, same eye level, because no one is better than other. We are all human beings, and everyone has a place, and you have to own your place, independent of what you are. Yeah, just feel empowered, feel that you belong to where you are, because no one has more right than others to be somewhere. If you are there, you have to occupy your space. Everyone has to have the right to occupy space.
Yeah, but perhaps if you're a woman, you need to know more, you need to be better, you need to, you can't just be the same. You have to be better in order to be the same. Anyway, that's
sometimes,
fascinating, fantastic to learn about you, about your experience, about Brazil, about the semiconductor industry, about the possibilities. I think we've had a fantastic session. Thank you very much, Edelweiss.
Yes, indeed. I learned a lot, and I guess as a group we learned a lot as well. Things that we didn't know, and we now know we have to study a bit more even. So Edelweiss, thanks a lot. Yeah, it was really helpful. Oh yes, I was almost forgetting. We usually take a screenshot of the participants so we can just keep it for the future. So I'll do it. I'll count down from 3. Let me see if I'm doing it right. Yeah, 3, 2, 1. I hope I got it. And if not, someone can take it as well for me, please. Yeah, so we hope to see you in the following meeting that might take place maybe in December, if not after Christmas. In the meanwhile, take care And thanks a lot again, Edelweiss. Take care,
Yeah,
everybody.
and if someone needs something, please send me an email. I'm happy to help. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take care. Take care. It was
Thanks.
very enriching.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.